the players voting on this think what I believe the general public mostly thinks about Dak, which is he is a league average NFL starter. That his best traits are the intangible leadership and the availability, and that as a passer he's limited. And that, I mean, if Carson Wentz is the 15th on this list, it's very hard to find a quarterback that was on this top 100 of those 15 quarterbacks that you can make a compelling case Dak should be ahead of, that Dak should replace. I know some people are down on Kirk Cousins, so some people would say Kirk because he's not great in big games, but Kirk's overall numbers are so far and away greater than Dak Prescott's, and his body of work is far greater, even if Kirk hasn't done in the playoffs the way Dak has. Maybe you can wiggle yourself into an argument. He shouldn't be out of the top 15. He should be 15th. But that's as high as it gets. There's no one else on this list, and it speaks to the depth of talent at the position. As we've been talking about all offseason, the old guys aren't retiring. The young guys are really good quick, and the veterans like Rodgers and Wilson and Luck are right in the apex prime of their career. So you all of a sudden have a glut of really good quarterbacks. It's great for the fans. It's not great for Dak's where he falls in the ranking. I don't think we're that far removed from an era of football where Dak would have been in the argument to be a top 10 quarterback. But that's not the era we're in right now. So in this regard, I think it's pretty obvious that these 15 guys, player for player, are better than Dak, and you'd feel more comfortable with them being your quarterback going into this season.
So why is it then the Cowboys are going to pay Dak Prescott as if he's one of the top 4 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks, whoever it is in the league? I mean, what do they see that we're not seeing or that the NFL players who voted on this aren't seeing?
Yeah, I remember late in my career, Jerry Rice, at that time, he was the highest paid, and he got a new deal that broke the record for wide receivers. And Michael Irvin got a deal right after that. And then I went to my general manager and was like, I want that same kind of deal. And he's like, you're not Jerry Rice. You know, we don't consider, we consider Jerry Rice to be the premier, not only wide receiver, but one of the premier football players. Or what about Mike Irvin? Well, yeah, we look at you and Mike, man, you guys are about the same. I said, well, we'll call up Mike. I had Mike's number. He called him on the phone. Went, hey, it's the playmaker. I'm not available right now. I said, what did it say? He said, he's not available right now. I said, okay. I'm your answer, bro. All right, he's not available. I'm all you have. And the Cowboys, this is their answer. And he's as good as what we see on tape. It's not like, oh, you know, they're holding him back. No. In his first year, he had a phenomenal year. And the players gave him credit for that. But in the 2 years after that, he has not been in the top 100. We are in a unique situation in pro football where we have 4 guys in their late 30s to 40s that are playing phenomenal football still at a high level. So the first 4 to 10 spots, they're gone. So now we got these young players that are coming in, and they're playing great football immediately. In their first 4 years, they're playing MVP caliber football. So now a guy like Dak, where we're throwing the ball league-wide 65% of the time, he's on a grinded out, 3 all-pro offensive linemen, a great running back, a good defense. The players see that. So Dak, he's going to have a hard time moving up. He has a hard time throwing the ball. If they take away the running game, he has a hard time throwing. The players realize that. There are too many guys in 2019 that throw the ball down the field with precision that I could say, if they were on the Dallas Cowboys, are the Dallas Cowboys better? And you'd be like, yes. To me, what Dak Prescott needs to do is go back, get this contract, and go back to being a true dual-threat quarterback, where I will run the ball and I will throw it. Because I don't think he's going to be an elite thrower, ever. But his athleticism, the combination, that's how Dallas can win. And that's how they can up their red zone percentage in scoring, because they're awful. But that would make him different. That'd make him better than Lamar. It'd make him better than the other athletic quarterbacks. And it would put, there's no one that's a dual threat right now with balance. So that could be that.
Well, and you mentioned the red zone, because that is what, to me, really, really damaged their offense last year, being 26th in the NFL in red zone percentage, scoring touchdowns on just 51% of their trips there. Warren Sharp pointed this out yesterday. I thought it was a really good point. Dak's success rate when running in the red zone was one of the very best in football. He just didn't do it very often. The Cowboys didn't utilize that element of his game as often as they should have. Zeke, as great as he is, his success rate was below average running in the red zone, not because Zeke's not great, but because everyone knew that's what they were going to do. They were loading up. They had those heavy fronts to where he had no holes to run through. So that is a way to get the most out of Dak Prescott. But the Cowboys have a tendency to wait on these deals, meaning into the offseason. And if they are going to re-sign Dak, I think they're going to regret letting Carson Wentz re-sign first. Just like they might regret with Amari Cooper, letting Michael Thomas re-sign first. Because all of a sudden, the new standard is set in a different way, which ups the price just a few million here and a few million there, and that adds up.
All right, let's move on and talk about some Cleveland Brown action where the hype and the expectations are sky high after Baker Mayfield's terrific rookie year. Even higher after Odell Beckham Jr. was added to the mix this offseason. But hype will only take you so far. Now they've got to actually go play a few games to see how it all comes together off paper. So how's that chemistry working between Baker and Odell? We'll let the quarterback tell you.
It's coming along great, as expected. Once you verbalize what we need to accomplish, then you get out there and I'm able to kind of put it anywhere with him. So it's coming along great. I think there's an appreciation from my end that, he's able to come communicate and talk through things. And it's just having that open relationship. Obviously, there's a chain of command. What Freddie says goes, but just being able to talk through things and see it from their perspective or mine is really good.
CC, for the most part, these two just started working together. Odell wasn't there. I don't think Jarvis was there either, but Odell wasn't there during OTAs and minicamp. So what is that learning curve like? What is the timing when you talk about chemistry with a wide receiver?
All right, and just like you and I talked this morning, because he wasn't there, people didn't make a big deal about it, but it slows down the communication. I mean, because Odell's getting a new playbook, even though he's familiar with the wide receiver coach, familiar with Jarvis. They're doing different things in Cleveland. Baker, his ball you have to adjust to. I worked out with Eli Manning. I worked out with Eli Manning and Peyton Manning down at their passing camp. My son was in the passing camp. I had just retired. I was still in great shape, and they were going through an NFL workout. They had a bunch of quarterbacks down there throwing. They needed some wide receivers. So I know Eli. I know the kind of ball he throws. And Eli, surprisingly, has a stronger arm than people give him credit for. He has a stronger arm than Peyton. But he does not have the arm that Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is an exceptional thrower of the football. Long, short. Before the game I did last year with him, I went on the field, caught passes with him because I wanted to see, I wanted to feel it. He throws a tight spiral. That's why I thought he could be successful, even though he's not the prototype height in Cleveland with that bad weather. He has a big enough hand. He's got a great grip on the ball, but man, he can flat out just throw it. And when you're not there for the mini camps, now all the practices become really important. Some of those things we could have worked out in April and May, we have to force to work them out now in July because we weren't there. And this will build. They will get to the game and get some game experience, and the relationship will build. Once they get to the playoffs and the intensity, primetime games, then it will build. This is not a finished product. This is going to take years and years and years to be able to get the type of chemistry that we've seen with some of the people like A.B., Ben Roethlisberger, Julio and Matty Ice. It takes time. Michael Thomas and Drew Brees. It takes time, but they're off to a great start. When you have talent, which they do, throwing talent and wide receiver talent. One thing that Baker said that I thought was phenomenal, and they have unbelievable talent at Oklahoma when he was there. Offensive line ranked the best offensive line, and he's got a bunch of skilled guys that will be sprinkled around the NFL. OBJ does things I'd never seen before. And when you have that in a wide receiver, as a quarterback, you start making compromises like, oh, okay, I don't have to be perfect. So your confidence goes up because you see the talent, not only his catching ability, his route running, and his ability to escape from the top of the route and expand and get away from people. That's one of the things that makes OBJ special.
Well, that also should definitely not shortcut, but ease this transition, because Baker is the most talented at the moment thrower of the football Odell's ever played with, high school, college, pro. And Odell is obviously the most talented receiver Baker's ever played with, high school, college, pro. And so in that regard, there is an element of, okay, our communication's not flawless, right, and our timing and our chemistry is not yet where we want it to be.
Okay.
But we are both having the luxury of playing with the best guy we've ever played with. But there is an element, when you talked about Eli's got a stronger arm than people give him credit for, but not the arm Baker has. I remember last year when they were switching from Tyrod, who, whatever you think of Tyrod, he obviously doesn't have the strongest arm in the league, to Baker, and what Jarvis said. And Jarvis talked about in practice, the ball catching up to him, getting up on him quicker than he thought, having to adjust it. For Odell, what are the things he can do to adjust to the velocity of the ball, the way the ball looks, reading the football coming out of Baker's hands?
All you can do is just get the reps. Until you see it, until you see the ball traveling, until you actually live it out, you're not going to appreciate the type of speed. But it's a matter of getting the reps, and after practice, getting on the same page. It's having a handful of routes after practice. We're going to throw those. One thing, too, that neither one of them has dealt with, OBJ has never had a quarterback as outspoken as Baker. So when he decides to go on and have one of his Baker's going to say something to him. How they react to that becomes very important. And Baker has never had a wide receiver who acts the way that Odell acts. So there's going to be some learning there, because there's a difference of when we have a meeting and I say, oh, that route sucked, compared to we get in the game, you're in Pittsburgh, and you run a bad route, and he's like, that route sucks. Because the intensity to it, we have to allow this to play out. Game experience is the only thing that will get them ready. You can only do so much in practice, but the time that they missed, it slows down their learning curve.
I think it's so important. We always talk chemistry. We talk on-the-field chemistry and timing and routes and all of it. But I think getting to know each other's personality is also a big part of making things work.
Yeah, like you realize Nick's a jerk now, so it doesn't get you up.
So I'm like one step ahead of other people who don't realize it.
It's like another day.
Yeah, I'm a bad guy. That's the story on me.
Coming up, is it starting to look like Ezekiel Elliott won't play a game for the Cowboys this season? Talking about that on First Things First.
The players on our staff, Hub, Deontay,